you know the work of Dr. Fred Bell after years on Coast to Coast AM. You can find out more from him by linking up to him at coasttocoastam.com. But I will say the author of Rays of Truth, Crystals of Light, former NASA scientist, business consultant, and also celebrity management. Always kind of an interesting tandem occupation working with the film industry and others. Still runs a company called Pyridine and has governmental ties. Dr. Fred Bell, good evening.
Hi, Ian. How are you doing? How's your pyramid?
Well, my only complaint is my pyramid hat wasn't really designed to go over headphones.
I know, they weren't. I was hoping you didn't have to go to finishing school to learn how to wear it, but it sounds like you got it made if you could do it with headphones.
Well, every time I lean forward, it slides off. So,
yeah, I heard it hit the deck there,
So I'm gonna have to wait till during the breaks.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get a receptor on you, something easier to manage.
I think so. Let me ask you, as a way of introducing you to people who don't know your work, if you were at a party and somebody asked you, what do you do? What do you say?
I don't know. I'm a student of the universe, I guess. I do lots of stuff. I've done a lot of things for the government, and by the way, I've got it up on a website. I'll tell you about that later. A lot of documents people wanted, and I've been developing a lot of consciousness-raising products for about 30 years. Pyridine's about 30 years old now, and we got distributors, and we're all over the world, and so that's been really important. The film thing that you mentioned, I'm in the movie business. I got into that for communication purposes because I was tired of seeing these stupid films of violence and all of it.
Right.
Because what I'm really about doing is making the planet a better place for the children. I could care less about some of the adults that don't really care. You know what I mean? But I got kids. I raised 3 daughters, and I really think it's necessary now to make a better place for the kids. And we got a lot of cleaning up to do. We got to clean up terrorists and oil spills and dirty governments, and we got a lot of work to do. But we'll do it. It's not a problem.
I'm interested in the film work, and I'll digress to that later on. Let's start there with the terrorists, because that's a fairly kind of ominous moment to float out through the rest of the show. That our last guest said that they anticipate some sort of attack this August 17th.
Let me bring in data on that. I understand what they said. I listened to it. I do some viewing here and there, and I'll take it back to where I got involved with this situation. It was at the end of the last 9/11. After 9/11, I did a little viewing, and Osama bin Laden left out of Tora Bora, and he went up through Tajikistan. Into a town called Dushanbe. Dushanbe is kind of if you went up there, it's north of Afghanistan. If you went in there, that town would be like a bunch of pirates and wild, outlaws. It's like 2,000 years old, so no CIA agent or no agent could bother him in there. He hung out there for a while. And then he went across the Hindustan mountains, up across the northern face of the Himalayas, went into China. And then he went into a place, and he was healed. He had some serious kidney problems. He went through healing for about 6 or 8 months. Then he left out of there, and he went over to Laos and Cambodia. And when he was over there, a lot of terrorist activity happened in the Philippines, if you remember, the following spring and summer. So whenever this man moves around, I sort of got into his head by doing this viewing. You start to see the action. And I have a kind of a pulse, a beat into the Homeland Security. I'm kind of tied in there through some friends. That's why we have Geiger counters and stuff on our website. And one of the big things that he's good at is making a disturbance somewhere else and going somewhere else. The whole thing over there in England recently was just to amuse, to distract everything. If you remember, in our terrorist alerts, never ever one of them was any good. It's just all it does is play into their hands when they have orange alerts, red alerts. It's all BS. The only alerts that are necessary, I feel, are when some child gets kidnapped, and we have an orange alert looking for a kidnapped kid.
Right, an amber alert.
An amber alert. So other than that, but what happened was I got into the nuclear business when I was a kid, but a friend of mine developed this pocket device that goes in your pocket. It goes on a keychain, and it's very important to have one of those now. And what happened was right after 9/11, he sold about 1 million of them over to the Homeland Security Department. So we know when there's terrorist activity by how many nuclear detectors, these pocket machines, that the Homeland Security buys. And they've been buying a few again. And what the real fear is based on a couple facts. One fact is every day out in Texas in that way, enough dirty nuclear material is stolen from construction sites to construct a dirty bomb. And this has been going on for about 18 months. And this stuff could be micronized. And the dirty bomb is not an explosion. There's no gunpowder or any explosive force. It's nothing more than a micronized bunch of radioactive powder that's ionized, the ionizing radiation. It's put inside a canister. You go into someplace like the MGM Grand, check in, throw it into the air conditioning system, walk away. People don't even notice it for 24 to 30 hours. People get sick. They figure it's bad food. And finally, about 5 or 6 days later, people are already dosed so bad. Now they're realizing there's a problem. Somebody's probably figured out by then, and by then some people are going to be dead in a couple of months. So that's the real danger. And then what happens is it hits our economy. Somebody says, well, the MGM Grand just got hit with this dirty nuke. Now nobody wants to go in the place for 15 years. So what happens in Nevada and Las Vegas? It's shut down. And that's because everybody's afraid to go there. It might happen to them. And that's kind of where they're at right now, based on statistics that I've seen, based out of Homeland Security. So and they figure it's between now and the next 24 months. This will probably happen. Yeah.
Now and the next. So, I mean, you're not ruling out something soon as opposed to later.
No, nothing soon. Yeah, it could happen at any time. This one thing. They've got other things that they'll do, but I don't see a bunch of Russian soldiers coming anywhere when they've got, the cells are all disconnected, and they financially they're not, when Bush was running around attacking bank accounts and all that, that was silly because that's not how they do business at all. They do business with cash, and they move it around in a very nice way, just like the drug lords do. And we don't seem to be doing very good against the war against drugs at all, and haven't. The more we do against it, the bigger it gets. So it's the same thing with terrorism. The only way that you can fight terrorism is raise consciousness. That's the only way. Well, that's what we're doing.
Well, then help me with that, because I mean, other than you mentioned the idea of a detector, right? I mean,
yeah, we have a pocket detector. It lasts 12 years on one battery.
But what is it? What will that give me? I mean, I would think.
Okay, let's say here's what it'll give you. If you're in the MGM Grand, this thing beeps about once every half an hour. And if you're in there and all of a sudden this thing starts going beep, 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 you better get out of there. And if you look at our website, you can actually look at one. You can actually you run a video and play with a little cursor and actually pretend that you're in a dirty area, and you can actually see the beeps changes and move it away. It's on our website. You can actually see this and have your own video demonstration of how it works. It's just a little keychain. It doesn't cost very much.
No.
And that's what I recommend everybody get. I mean, they're really handy. That's what Homeland Security. That's what the government's using. If you want to know.
You said you sold about a million of those.
Yeah. My friend Sean did, yeah.
Who does was that Sean David Morton?
No.
Okay. No. So you sell those to them, and then they give them to whom?
The people that work there. Sean O'Connor is the name of the guy that developed them. He's over in Texas. He sells them through us. They give them to the people that work for the government. All government people carry them. They carry them on their keychains wherever they go. Everybody's got them over there. They sold 1 million of them when that 9/11 for actually a couple million now. When they first ordered him, I'll tell you the story. Right after 9/11, he got a call. He's over in Austin, Texas, and they said, we want to buy about 1 million of these things. Well, he's only got 600,000 in my warehouse. And he says, okay, we'll take those. He says, okay, we'll get them ready. So he got them ready, and they says, now we want to come and get them. He says, well, I got to get paid. You know how slow the government is.
Right.
Paying, and that's what he says. I'm a little company. I can't give you my entire inventory. They said, no problem. Here, your cashier's check is coming FedEx right now. You'll have it in the morning. So the morning comes, there's a check, and now he says, now how do I ship this thing? And he says, we're not used to shipping this many. And he said, oh, no problem. We'll send some jets. And so he sent in a couple of private jets, and he loaded up his pickup truck and everything that he had, and they went down there to the local airport in Austin and loaded up the planes and hauled them off. They wanted them right now. They had them within 48 hours, and they had him paid. It's amazing how quick they can move when they got to go. So now, because he's connected over there, and I am too, that we got a lot of, we get a lot of good input at this point.
All right, so we have that, but then advancing planetary consciousness. Help us understand how we can use that then to fight off these terrorist threats.
Well, it works through the mind. For example, one of the things that we've been working with for a long time is master crystals, a quartz piece, big large piece of quartz you put in your house. And if you go down to Arkansas where they mine them, and you go in certain shops, people will walk into that shop and you say, "Oh, look at that nice crystal! I want to buy it because they got crystal for sale." And at first, people will say, "No, that one's not for sale." And they'll say, "Why not?" Because that's our master crystal. It protects our shop. And basically, what happens is if they're not around, the place is closed. Some thief comes up and wants to break into their shop. That crystal will put out an energy field that will make that thief get paranoid and go away. And terrorism works on paranoia. So you have to put up a field of energy. Not only from your brain, but other objects around you that puts this field out that makes them get very scared and very nervous, and they're very easy to penetrate into their consciousness. It's not a hard thing to do. But at the same time, because of the way their religious practices work, they look at Americans, because a lot of Americans are in denial about how they live and how they work over here.